Is social media a good thing or a bad thing? I guess that's too much to talk about in one podcast episode, but we are going to talk about how social media is not real. That's right. It's not real. It's something designed to keep you engaged, and we're going to talk about what to think about it, especially as you look at your business. All that and more on today's episode, but before we dive in, here's a business that sponsored today's episode. And don't forget, you can always support the podcast on our Patreon, patreon.com/goodadvice, especially if you enjoy the podcast for being the place that you can learn all the practical, tangible things on how to do business better that's available to you. Anyway, check out this quick ad. We'll be right back. There's one single piece of advice that I give to business owners who are ready to scale their business drastically. And that's knowing exactly what you need to hand off so that you can continue focusing on what you're an expert in. It amazes me when I talk to business owners who are doing their own bookkeeping and tax prep, and worse, that they're going through all of this paperwork at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, even midnight, slaving away trying to make sense of all of the numbers for their business. Business owners who are making it happen have already figured out that you can't do it all yourself. That's why I recommend Steve Lay with Equity Business Solutions. Not only is he an expert in bookkeeping and tax prep, but what I love about Steve is that he'll sit down with you and help you make sense of the value of your business beyond just reading a spreadsheet. You'll be able to make better decisions, and more importantly, you're going to save yourself the crucial time you would have spent going through QuickBooks or an Excel spreadsheet or whatever it is that keeps us up late at night. So save yourself some time and some money by giving Steve Lay a call at Equity Business Solutions, and he'll show you the value beyond your numbers. Go to equitybusinesssolutionsllc.com to find out more. All right, this is my little bit of a disclaimer, on the front end. You may love social media. You may love TikTok, Instagram, what have you. And, I think there are some cool things that come with these platforms. But I want to talk today about something that's been resting on my shoulders, which is that social media is not real. It's not real. I'll say it again. Social media is not real. And I think this is true in two different forms. And the reason I think this is so important is because many of us spend quite a bit of time on social media. It formulates our perspective on things. It usually drives much of our foundation of our beliefs, which is kind of sad. It just is what it is. Unfortunately, I'll talk to someone and I'll hear them say something, and sometimes I even know where they got it from, where I'm like, oh, okay, you're following this big influencer, or you're, yep, I know that person. I've seen some of that person's content. A good example of this would be like Grant Cardone, who's a big real estate guy, a big marketing guy. I personally don't align with his perspective on life or business, but I was talking to someone who was talking about how debt is good. You want to use debt to leverage more investments. And this is a pretty, in the way they described it, I knew this was coming from Grant Cardone, because this has been a pretty big point of his own philosophy of how to do business. And so, as people share things, it's like, okay, yeah, I kind of get an idea of where you're listening to, what you hear that from, where that comes from, what have you. So all this to say, I want to talk today about social media. I want to encourage you. I'm just going to cut to the chase. I want to encourage you to spend less time on social media. I feel like the fabric of our society is like, our essence is like slipping away a little bit with just the amount of things that we are inundated with. I remember there was a time in my life that I was feeling particularly depressed about the state of things and felt like the world was falling apart. This was probably like maybe 2-3 years ago. And just then I opened my computer, I pulled up Google, and had like the headlines on it. And it was like, the headline was, Earth killer asteroid may hit planet in 2025 or something like that. And I just kind of laughed. I was like, of course. And we have an asteroid that's going to blow up the planet, of course. But I also had like this light bulb moment where I was like, oh, okay, hang on. I'm starting to realize something. Social media in headlines and news and all of this stuff is designed to keep you as engaged as possible. And these are businesses. These platforms are businesses. If you remember 2, 3, 4 years ago, there was a big drama where Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook or Meta, they had to, there were congressional hearings about if they had done enough to protect people's privacy and protect children and all these different things. These are businesses. These are businesses that are trying to make as much money as possible. And what these businesses have found is that keeping you as engaged as possible is incredibly lucrative for them. And it's lucrative for them just because of the time spent on the platform, but also you've probably noticed that a lot of these platforms have lots of ads. If you scroll Instagram, it's like every other reel or every other, I say reel, that'd be YouTube. But if you scroll through, you'll see that a lot of these things are advertising, ads for sponsored posts, things like that. So it's lucrative in that sense, but it's also just lucrative, just time spent on the platform. So I mention this because I have noticed how vitriolic social media has become as well. And I've also noticed that there has been the rise of what's called rage content. You might have also heard it as like rage baiting content or bait content. And what this is content that is designed to keep you engaged. Now, and there's a marketing background here, by the way. So whenever you do an ad or a marketing ad, there is some pretty good theories around how to get people to click on your ad. And one of those things that you might hear about is like purposely misspelling something in the ad or having there be a small mistake. And people will say, oh, wow, I can't believe you'd make that mistake. But actually what it's designed to do is to catch someone's attention and, more importantly, get them in the comments so that people see, oh, this ad is trending. There's lots of things happening in this ad. Another example of this was I was on Instagram this morning and I saw this woman. This was the dumbest thing I have ever. And I was mad. I was mad watching this, and I knew it was rage content. I knew it was designed to get engagement, to get clicks. I even knew it on the front end, and I was mad looking at it. But this woman, she took out a frozen pizza. She cut it into slices. She put it into a pot of boiling water. She strained out the goopy, melted, cheesy, doughy, wet bits onto a paper towel. She put flour on it. She molded it into dough. Then she baked it with ketchup and more cheese and made a pizza. And I thought, you had a pizza. You already had a pizza. Why did you go through all these steps to get a new pizza? And I thought, okay, it's rage content. Just relax. It's rage. It's engagement bait is all it is. Just relax. But that is social media today. It's stuff that is designed to keep you angry and invested and clicking and staying on the platform. Sometimes it's like, what is the latest controversy or drama? I've noticed that almost every headline is on Reddit is this person rages about, something that happened. Just certain buzzwords that continue to pop up to get, I think I saw a post that was like, this politician rages at, loses it. And then I watched the clip and the person was like it was pretty normal. So, and I try to avoid talking about politics on the podcast, but all that to say, I mean, it's just funny. It's funny to me how much just engagement bait there is. So I say that on the front end, just in the sense of, you have to keep these things in mind so that you're not being pulled along in your own worldview. You're pulled along in your own perspective. But more importantly, I think the most important thing about social media not being real is understanding that I think sometimes we just trust what people say, or we at least take it with a grain of salt, but we at least put a little bit of credence to it. And a lot of times we don't know who these people are. We don't know who they are. We don't know their perspective. Anybody can lie. Anybody can lie and make things up. Anybody can fake things. Anybody could make pictures and say, oh, yeah, I mean, I saw a picture of a guy who It was like a list of several $1,000 transactions. And he was like, wow, I can't believe that just the other day I was working in a restaurant and now I'm making all this money. This stuff's easily just creatable. You can just make it. Anybody could say something. And I think we're honestly seeing this a little bit with the older generations that aren't as computer savvy or tech savvy as some of the younger generations where, I was in the barber shop and someone pulled up a picture. This gentleman, older gentleman by me, pulled up this picture and said, "Oh my gosh, check this out." And it was a very clear AI photo. And the other barber goes, "Dude, that's AI." And the other guy goes, "No, it's not. This is real." And he goes, "No, that is AI. 100%. That's AI." And that's the world we're living in right now, is just you can't know what's real. But even beyond like the AI side of it, understanding that people can say anything, they can claim anything, they can promise anything. And not like to get super personal towards anyone about this, but I remember I saw someone, they posted about how happy they were with their spouse, how in love they were, how amazing things were. Just some random post I saw, and I thought, oh, okay, that's cool. 2 months later, they were divorced, or 6 months later, they were divorced. So I don't know. It kind of reminds me of like when my wife and I were first married and we were having an argument, and my wife, she goes, no, none of our friends are she said something to the effect of none of our friends have this kind of stress between us. And she said something like, I never, on Facebook, they look so happy. And I was like, yeah, well, people aren't live streaming fights on Facebook. It's like people aren't putting drama on Facebook. I think I've told the story before about the person that was posting all these wins, all these massive wins on social media. And then we started to work together. And I said, yeah, well, let's talk revenue. And we didn't start to work together. We sat down to have the conversation about working together. And I said, let's talk revenue. And this person was like, I have not made a single sale all year. And the post had gone back like 9 or 10 months previously. And I was kind of like, well, what was all of that? Like, why were you saying all of that? Another reason I point this out is because I think a lot of this stuff is just downright wrong and lying. I knew a marketer who talked about how he had discovered the secret. He knew the blueprint. He had figured it out from a sales perspective. He knew he said, man, I had this playbook that it came to me and I put it together and then it just clicked. And suddenly I was getting all this money and all these sales and hundreds of thousands of dollars and yada, yada, yada. And then come to find out he had been working on this for 10 plus years. See, that's not very sexy. People don't like time. They like immediacy, urgency, instant results. I should be able, if I can get you the deal tomorrow, that's what I'm looking for. But it's not how the world works. But people talk about it as if it does work that way, and they make promises to people to get clicks, to get engagement, to bait people into, being part of, engaging with their platform. And you have to remember that 99% of this isn't real. And in fact, not even when it's for someone's advantage. I was talking to somebody this other day. They said, well, people don't lie when it doesn't benefit them. And I was like, yes, they do. Yes, they do. People will lie for absolutely no reason at all. I've seen this all the way down to my 3-year-old son, who he lied about something. And I said, son, why did you lie to me? And he goes, I did. I just did. And I go, but why? And he goes, I don't know. I just did. And it's just something, there's something in us that for whatever reason, it's like, yeah, I lied. That's what I did. And so I think sometimes we give a little bit too much, have too much faith in people of like, well, they're not going to lie if it's not true. Or for me, this was like the worst part of it. This marketer I spent way too much money on, over 10 grand on. And talking to my wife, I remember before I gave him the money, my wife was like, well, I mean, how comfortable are you with this guy? Like, do you feel like he's really going to do what he says he's going to do? And I was like, honey, he's not going to lie. He's not allowed to lie. And did not. I was so naive. I had no idea that people lied all the time, that made things up all the time. And, it's just the fact of the matter. It just is what it is. So all that to say, my encouragement to you today is you might spend a little less time on social media. You might unplug a little bit. In fact, I've been reading this book called Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. You might check it out. I'm really enjoying it. It's reminding me about how plugged in and urgent and always online and always, giving takes. And that's the other thing that's kind of exhausting to me about social media. It's like, what's your take? What's your take on blank? And it's constant pitter patter and chatter and back and forth. And here's what's really going on with this issue. And, it's just like everyone's an expert. Everyone's expected to give a take. And it's exhausting. It's exhausting. And worse, these platforms are incentivized to keep you on their platforms. They're not going to fact check. In fact, they've already said openly they're not going to fact check. They're not going to manage. They're not going to do anything like that. I mean, Meta, for example, has been in the news in the last couple of years for, if your account gets locked or hacked or deleted or what have you, I'd say probably just hacked. You can't easily get a hold of support. It's all AI, it's all chat bots, what have you. I mean, it's kind of wild, really. So the premise of this book, Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, is about getting back to the rhythm that our soul was meant for, which isn't the 24-hour news cycle. What's really going on? Here's the latest headline. I mean, geez, every day is so wild because you can check a headline and it's wildly different from the day before. Like every day, it's almost like news stations try to top the day before with the more crazy ridiculousness stuff that's happening. And that's not to say that there isn't real injustice in the world, that there's not real evil in the world, there's not real bad things happening in the world. That's not to minimize the lack of justice happening in the world, but it is a reminder, I think, to all of us that if social media is the foundation of your life, I think you should be deeply troubled and deeply alarmed by that. And you might even say like, well, no, I spend a lot of time on social media, but it's not the basis of my beliefs. It's not the basis of my foundations and what have you. And I'd say do two things. One, a lot of smartphones today will tell you how much time you're spending on your screen. And it'll tell you how much time's on your screen and which apps you're spending that time on. And if that's on a social media platform like TikTok or Instagram or what have you, or on, whatever it is, that's a great indicator of how much time you're spending. But two, and I'm going to butcher this because I can't think of like what's the expression, but the premise of all of this, even when you say that's not the foundation for my life, there's a good principle around where you spend your time is what you treasure most. It's kind of like the whole show me your calendar and I'll show you your values. Where you spend your time is what you treasure most. So for me, every morning, every evening, I spend that with my family. I spend that with my kids. It's important to me. It's something I value. That's not, by the way, oh, wow, look at me. It's just me blatantly saying like, I set that time aside in the morning and the evenings because that is deeply important to me. If you are spending 4, 5, 6 hours a day on social media, how can you not say that's something you deeply treasure? How can you not say that is something that's a deep part of your belief and foundation? It's something to think about. And you might even check out this book, Ruthless Elimination of Hurry, and let me know what you think about it because I'm really enjoying it. It's been challenging for me. It's reminding me, again, about the rhythms that I'm meant to have and not what the world wants to wrap me up in for their own monetization and engagement and what have you. So again, remember, social media, it ain't real. Hey, if you enjoyed today's episode, thanks so much for listening to the podcast. Don't forget, you can support the podcast on our Patreon, patreon.com/goodadvice. Thank you for those of the businesses who have sponsored the podcast for so long. And thank you for those of you who've listened to the podcast and promoted the podcast. We so appreciate it. That's all for today's Good Advice. We'll see you later.